I'm Schiffer Hendry here with Ani Lipitz, and we're expecting momentarily our second guest, Rivkah Roness. We're going to be talking about some really, really exciting, cool things like deep soul healing, past lives, the power of this month to generate miracles, and much more. So share with your friends. We want to build this. We want as many people to benefit as possible. So feel free to share the live replay. I'm putting up the chat here so I can see any questions that you have or any comments. Also, please go to my YouTube. Ani also has a YouTube. I don't know your YouTube channel, but please go to my YouTube.
Vision.
Vision. Okay. And mine is Schiffer Hendry. So please, if you're not on YouTube, go there and subscribe so you'll get all the notifications. And yeah. All right, without further ado, so we want to start with talking about this month. So I have been learning, studying, and teaching over and over for many years a particular discourse of the Lubavitcher Rebbe on this month, on specifically this day of the month, Rosh Chodesh, the first day of Nisan. And the Rebbe says there's some unbelievable things, including that this is the Torah says this is the Rosh Hashana of miracles and redemption. So the Rosh Hashanah that we know, the first day of Tishrei, that is a renewal of the world, the laws of nature. Every year when it comes around, it's on a higher level. It's renewed on a higher level. That's history keeps moving forward. Our potential keeps moving forward. Heaven and earth merge more and more is possible. We see that in this technology. We see that in the energy healing that we'll be talking about. We see in innovation, human innovation, the amount of information that's available in the world is exponentially growing. I don't even know at what rate, but beyond the mind to be able to conceive. So all of this is a moving into infinity. That's Rosh Hashanah. That's Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. But on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is today, that is the Rosh Hashanah of miracles and redemption. That is where the Torah, that is where the God, that is where the souls start to interact with the raw potential. We just lost Ani. Hopefully she'll come back in a minute. Hello? And hang on one second. I'll hold my thought, but I'm getting text. Maybe it's from Rivka's trying to connect. Hang on. It could take a while. Mine circled for about a minute. So just keep trying. And if you have a problem, reach out to hey, sorry, guys. I'll give you the number of my husband to WhatsApp. Sorry about that. Okay. And Ani's back. And I don't remember exactly
which one of us froze.
I think it was.
We're just bringing in those big lights. It's fine.
Okay. Does anybody know which one of us froze? Anyway, so the point is that on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, it's like Tishrei is the board game. It's like Rosh Hashanah is the board game. Everything's set up. We are the players. And this is the Rosh Hashanah of the power of the players. So we have increased power, massively increased power, like an influx, like an explosion of increased power that never existed before to play this game on a whole new level. So that's what I want to say. And we want to activate that power through our discussion here and through everything that we do today, which one of the things we do is if you have a prayer book or if you want to look online, there's something called the Nasi, N-A-S-I. It's a paragraph on the particular leader of the tribe, the prince of the tribe, that of the 12 tribes each day brought their dedications to the Mishkan, to the sanctuary. So it's a very big, how do you translate skula? It's a holy and empowering act to say
it opens a channel. It opens a channel. Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody has questions about that, feel free to ask, or you could ask on the Telegram. We can send you a link just to say it every day for the first 12 days of Nisan. All right. So Ani, do you want to add anything about, by the other thing I wanted to say is tomorrow I think I'm on by myself unless I have a surprise guest. And I will tell you a lot more of what the Rebbe has to say about this time and how we can activate our supernatural power. Because that's the point. That's the point of this. Tishrei is the natural order, which keeps rising, keeps getting more supernatural by itself. But then we, orders of magnitude more, have to become supernatural and lend that supernatural God energy that comes from us individually into the whole, so that we change the nature of nature more and more, merge heaven and earth, and bring this metamorphosis to its culmination, which is going to be unbelievable. Okay, so anything you wanted to add? Rivka's
I know, I can't wait for her to get on because her energy is going to lend so much to this. Something that Rivka and I were talking about this morning, because we know a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is like the past life work and the soul healing. So one thing I want to jump off with saying is that a lot of people, especially like religious people, they know that reincarnation is a concept and past lives are a concept. But one of the biggest challenges of our generation right now is that people are stuck in this like klipa and this like warped filter of like, okay, I know all of this stuff is real, but it's not like really real. It's not like that real. And it is that real. And understanding that it is that real is a huge piece of us transitioning into what it means to be living in Geula in the redeemed state. Understanding that no, all of it's that real. We are that real. So what I want to say from this is that a lot of people have this idea that like, oh, going into past lives, like it's so new agey, like what's the point? Like people think that it's like almost a touristy thing, but it's really an avoda thing. It's really a deep inner work thing. And I think Rivka is going to speak a lot more to this when she gets on. Also,
I'm sorry for looking down, but I'm trying to share her contact with David so he can help her.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. Is that having started to delve into the past lives, which it was really like a pull from my soul. Like it's always been something I've been interested in, but it's so deep, like pulling you to start looking there and figuring stuff out from that perspective. Like, who am I really? Coming into deeper self-ownership. It brings you into such deeper experiential relationship with God. It has, Rivka and I have both had the experience of it massively enhancing our das of God, meaning like our knowing of him experientially, our love and our fear of God, our understanding of the concepts of like his mercy and his like unconditional love. Like when you see some of the stuff that you've done in past lives, you're like, oh my God, how do I even still exist? Like it's like that. And you realize that still we've been shepherded through the process of history to this time of the redemption to come stand in our power and to do these like, this final healing that shifts us totally into who we really are. So for people who are uncomfortable with the idea, what does it have to do with serving God or with Torah and mitzvahs? Has everything to do with enhancing your sense of self and your sense of God, which obviously automatically then takes your whole practice to an entire different level.
So how did you discover this? I'm really sorry, I'm distracted. I'm really trying to get you know what? If you want to keep talking, give me a second. I
Sure.
I want to get tech help for Rivka because she should really be in this conversation. The two of you should.
Yeah, she totally needs to be in this conversation. I'm limping along here myself. I'll just tell you.
That started like your in general, your experience with energy healing, how that works.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I've always been interested in reincarnation. When I was like 16, my cousin got me the book Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. Yeah. He's a psychiatrist who, he was one of the first people who brought like the concept of past lives into a much more serious framework. And he took massive professional and personal risk to do so, and it really changed the collective consciousness. So I was always super interested in past lives and things like that. I always felt like a pull to be like, it's so interesting, like it's so incredible to know. Actually, when I first heard about the concept, I was actually in 4th grade, and there was this movie called Fluke, which was about this guy who got reincarnated like into a dog and like tried to rejoin his family. It's actually horrible because we know that we don't want a human soul in any other body but a human that's fitting for it. But whatever. So anyway, it's always been a theme that God has like kept in my life. And then it was like a few years ago. So like I converted to Judaism, and for me to really understand myself and my story and who I am, like it's not just this thing where it's like, oh, I liked Judaism, so I decided to throw away my life and become an Orthodox Jew. Like there's something so deeper, it's an identity thing that pulls you. And I wanted to understand, like, in order to participate consciously and more consciously in my life and with more quality to show up for myself, for God, for my mission, I wanted to like understand, like, why did I have to come in this way? Like, why has my journey been what it's been? And so I started.
Meaning that you weren't born Jewish.
Right, exactly. That I came
I
in,
mean,
that
I
I
was
came
being
in.
Jewish, but I wasn't
Right,
or even that familiar. Yeah. So yeah, go
right.
ahead.
That you come in through the back channels kind of.
Yeah.
And I want, like, cause you know that everything has a real reason. And there's this narrative that like, oh, but like someday we'll know like when Mashiach comes or when the Geula comes. But there is this part of me that's like, no, I really feel like I can know now, and I need to know in order to have the level of self-ownership that I want to have in my life. And then started learning a few years ago, almost simultaneously, that the Rebbe said actually the Geula is here, the power of Mashiach is here. So I was like, oh, so that must mean like I could know and I can trust, like as long as I'm checking in with myself to know that whatever inner work I'm doing, recovering memories, recovering sensations, doing healing around stuff that is presenting to me as past life, as long as I see that it's enhancing my connection to God, like let me trust it and go with it. So I started doing like my own inner meditations. I did actual past life regression with trained professional. And then Rivka and I just like a month and a half ago.
What trained? Wait. You skipped over
Yeah,
something. You started training
yeah.
with a professional. What did, just explain that
No,
a
I
little?
said I no, I said I did a past life regression with like
Oh,
a
with
trained
the trained,
professional.
oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah, with a trained professional. Yeah. And then
It's circle.
um, Yeah, and then Rivka and I like dove in like a month and a half ago, like super deep. Like we just like we reconnected, and we discovered. I was telling her about some of the past life stuff because she was interested in it too, that I discovered, and all of a sudden we discovered that we had a couple shared lifetimes. So we've been processing those together, and it's been insane. We've been able to like corroborate memories, details, experiences. It's been crazy.
How do you
And the
correlate?
movement,
Sorry.
one of essentially, yeah,
If you want
essentially
to take
like,
a sentence, you don't have to answer me first. I want to know, but
no, 100%. So like one of us will be like, hey, I have, one of us will be like, hey, like this thing came up, like, are you able to tune into that? Like, what do you see about it? And they'll add, one of us will add more details, and the next one will add more details, and it'll be like, oh my God, yes, that's what happened. Or on a higher level, there's been a couple of times where we've simultaneously messaged each other after we haven't been in touch for like a few hours or a day or whatever, like, hey, this thing just came up for me, and it's the same thing from the same lifetime that's
can
like
you give me an
emerging.
example, even if it's not a real example or one that's not too
Yeah.
personal?
So yeah, so she messaged me. It was about a particular issue she was having, and she was like, and at the exact same time, like she answered herself and I answered her too about a particular memory in a kitchen around a table that we both had simultaneously from a particular lifetime that we'd been working through.
You saw it in a visual?
Yes, we both see it visual, and then like one of us will tell the other like, hey, here's how this particular aspect of this life presented to me, and she'll be like, oh my God, like I saw it the exact same way, like details. Um, so it's been a huge, and again, it's not like, oh my God, it's so exciting, like anyone could say like, oh, whatever, you're feeding off each other, it's just your imagination spinning out. But when you experience the actual psychological emotional shifts of patterns changing and releasing, like for me, a big piece of what I've been doing is seeing how a massive codependency pattern has been a huge part of what my soul's been working out like throughout the lifetimes, and bringing a whole new dimension of release to those codependency patterns, intrusive thoughts that I've dealt with my entire life, finding those past life roots, and like they're gone now. It's
Wow.
so powerful.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah,
where's Rivka?
she's working with David. She's not able to, like, he's been asking me questions. That's why I keep looking away, but
No problem.
I don't know. The same link that worked for you should work for her. I don't know why it's not. He might be walking in to give me an update. Are you walking in to give me an update?
This is what she sees, and I don't know what to tell her to do.
I don't need. Did you get this screen before you came on? With you?
Let me see. No, I didn't. I don't think I did.
Are you on a phone on?
Oh wait. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm on a phone. Yeah, maybe I did. Maybe that was before. Yeah, yeah. No, that is what I saw.
Remember what you did then?
It brought me into the room.
Automatically brought you in.
Yeah.
Not
Maybe
letting her.
she needs to try again.
Hers isn't letting her in. I don't know what to do about that.
She's tried multiple times.
She's tried multiple times.
Uh,
Try generating a new link. Maybe have her reboot her phone. This is his specialty. So whatever. It's so weird. Yesterday my video, I couldn't get it to work at all. And no matter what I did or what I did, and then I don't know what's happening with the tech issues. So bear with us, guys. Sorry about this.
It's big stuff that went here. So it's like overload. I'm sure it's overloading the circuits.
I did hear that long ago. I heard long ago when I first got involved in redemption activism, Mashiach activism. I saw that there was like, I was a pusher. I had a lot of ideas that I got from the Rebbe. The Rebbe would say something, and I'd be like, how do we do that? And then I would push people, because sometimes people had to be pushed. They didn't, whatever. I had a certain urgency based on my life experience that some people didn't have, but I don't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, here she is. Okay, good timing.
Oh, Baruch Hashem.
I made it.
Hey, yay!
All right.
Hi.
I'm sick of hearing myself talk, so start.
Well, let me just introduce. This is if I didn't introduce Ani either. I've gone from formal to casual, maybe too casual. So I am Shifra Henry. This is Ani Lipitz, who's been speaking, geulavision.com, and this is Rivkah Roness, who is a burgeoning, amazing healer. And
No, she's already there. She's not burgeoning. She's already there.
We're all burgeoning, I hope.
Yes, true.
Ani's for sure there.
None of us are already there, because where is there? We're somewhere. We're here, and now we got to go somewhere farther. That's the process. Today is the Nasi of Nachshon ben Aminadav, right? Nachshon, known for,
oh my God,
leader of
stepping
the tribe
into the sea.
Judah, who stepped it. All the Jews were like, God said, walk this way, and then there was an ocean in front of them, and they couldn't walk, and they broke down into 4 different divisions, like arguing with each other and freaking out. And one wanted to pray, one got upset and wanted to go back to Egypt. Whatever the case may be, one wanted to turn around and make war. And this prince, this leader of the tribe of Judah, of Yehuda, just kept walked right into the water.
I think all three of us are of that stream.
Yeah.
Just
yes.
now we're not going to keep walking. Yeah.
Yeah, like Ellie says a lot, be like Nachshon. I think he even created a shirt and a cup that says that. But I've been thinking about Nachshon, talking about Nachshon for so many years, because you just, you don't see the future. We don't see the future. When the future is not like the past, when it's coming in real time, burgeoning. It is not here. Like, we're never going to be there, because we're going from finite to infinite to more infinite to more infinite to more infinite. So the only way to deal with that, if we are meant to be players and proactive, we got to take one step at a time, not knowing where we're going. We know the direction. We don't know what's going to happen, and trusting. And Nachshon didn't drown himself. He got up to, I assume, here, or lifting his head, and then he cried out to God, save me, because I'm going to die if I go any farther. And then the sea split for everybody, So this is the sea. The sea is compared to Kabbalistically to a level called Malchus of Atzilus, which is basically the border between creator and creation, and that's what's going to split.
Right.
So other things that are going to split Kabbalistically, but that's what we're talking about. When we talk about splitting the sea. So that's very powerful today. The Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the Nasi of Nachshon ben Aminadav of Shevet Yehuda. Anyway,
the splitting of the sea, also this ties into the past life stuff that I've already started blabbing about, but Rivkah, I want to hear from Rivkah more about her stuff. I was telling Shifra Hannah already how we've been able to like corroborate memories from like shared lifetimes, which has been mind blowing. Yeah. But I wanted to say about the splitting of the sea is that the sea is also the Alma de Escasia, the hidden worlds, which is also our subconscious, the hidden realms within ourselves. And when we talk about the sea splitting and becoming dried land, it means we make it conscious. So those depths within ourselves that before were covered over and hidden, and that's exactly kind of what this past life work is those, you split the sea and you see what's really in your depths, and you make it part of who you are consciously.
Yeah, exactly. Literally,
before you start, you need to talk with. I can't help but say that I read in a discourse by the Rebbe Maimer that the soul, that what is health? Health is when the soul is fully embodied. So as you were talking before, Ani, I was thinking consciousness alone won't fully embody the soul if parts of our soul are still processing things unconsciously from previous
Yes,
and other times.
exactly.
Okay.
Rivkah, you want to speak to that piece of the work?
Or any piece. Rivkah seems frozen.
No, I think she froze for a sec. She'll be back shortly. You hear us, Rivkah?
Sorry, guys. I did not hear that last part.
Shifra Chana was saying that the Rebbe says that health is when the soul is like fully embodied, and that if there's parts of us that are not able to be embodied because they're stuck, they're processing trauma, which is exactly what Rivkah and I have discovered doing this work. If you want to talk about that, Rivkah.
Yeah,
soul
it's
splits
so
and the
true.
fragmentation. Yeah.
I've noticed there was actually something related to the way my body was working, and through my work with Ani, that through the past life work we were doing together, where we had that shared past life and all these shared experiences, we worked through something specific, and that issue actually completely shifted once we brought back that part of my soul that was not there anymore, and it was completely gone. The issue was completely resolved. And it's not only
I just realized it was that. I just realized that was the same, literally exact same issue for me.
Oh, really?
So you guys are saying
Yeah.
you shared a life and you had the same issue in this shared life?
We've shared a few lives.
Yeah. We have a lot of history.
And Hashem brought us back together this time around to like do the thing.
You didn't even know each other.
No, we just fell into a friendship.
Yeah, we met on. Yeah, we met on from Lubavitch Emotion Code Body Code Practitioners Group, and Rivkah, you could tell our love story if you want.
Yeah. So the moment we met, we laid eyes on each other. Ani actually reached out to me to like work on her randomly because she fell off her horse, and I was like, "Sure, let's do this." And I just like quickly worked on her. I was at an indoor playground with my kids, and she was like, "Wow, you got to work with my daughter." And I worked on her daughter, and she was like, "There's a bunch of past life stuff with my daughter that I think are correlating to this issue that she has." And we worked on it, and together in our session, it was so powerful. We were able to uncover all this stuff, and I was also mind blown. I'm like, she does all this past life stuff that I've always wondered about. Like, who is this woman? And it just changed my life. Ever since then, we were just like back and forth, and everything opened up for us. And then all of a sudden, we had like more and more revelations, and things kind of like snowballed in a good way. And like, here we are.
Yeah, I'm doing this now for our clients.
Yes, exactly. Correct. I've been integrating them into my sessions as well. And it's amazing what we can uncover and see through this work, because we're not just who we are in this lifetime. We are also who we were. And we're also just have the essence of our souls. And when we don't have all of that part of our soul, like, when somebody goes through a trauma and they say, oh, it feels like that person took a part of me. That's exactly what they did. And parts of us are either left somewhere or in some place or with somebody, and they're not supposed to be. We need that back. We need a lost and found for the soul.
Lost and found for the soul.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this, and what has opened up internally for you? Like, I'm assuming that I'm sure that neither one of you had access to this before, what you have now, or not in your awareness. And I have similar experience. I'm seeing that things are opening up more and more inside of people, which is part of redemption. So if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah, me personally, I've been able to plug into past life details for like a couple years. It's come more and more online. And I do past life regressions with people, but only people who are like seriously in the work and need this to get past serious blocks in their work. But it was about 6 weeks ago that Rivkah and I, like, the soul explosion happened, and we've been nonstop with each other and now with our clients in a deeper way.
Mordechai, what are you asking? Lama. Mordechai's asking Lama. Is that Muzar? Oh, people are chatting in Hebrew, I see. Okay, if anybody wants to ask a more specific question, feel free, because I'm not catching what it is that you want to know. So,
what about your interest in past life?
Say again?
What about your interest in past life? Like, how did that develop for you?
Well, I always was like, oh, people are mekubles, they're cool, they know how to do this stuff, and I always was fascinated by it. And then a random practitioner, not a random practitioner, a friend of mine who is a practitioner who's not in the frum world or in the Jewish world really, told me one time during a session that there was a past life dynamic that was really hugely impactful with regard to a life situation that I was going through. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then when I started working together with Ani on past life stuff, and we started kind of going down the rabbit hole, I realized like all those past lives were true, and the things were coming up. I was like, oh my God, this is all a thing. And then not only is it like, at first I was like, I'm totally crazy. Like, this is crazy. Like, I think I'm nuts. Like, did this even happen? And then I realized how strongly and correctly it correlates to what I'm going through now in my life, and how it can't be. And it's literally exactly what I need to know. And it's all the answers that I had been looking for. And as a practitioner, I would get very frustrated with myself. Every few months, I would go into a session, and every few months, I'd be like, okay, I need to go deeper. How do I go deeper? How do I go deeper? And I just felt so overwhelmed with frustration because I was doing all this work, because, you learn up to a certain point, but then after that, you really you're on your own. And once we've got this past life stuff, I was like, everything opened up. All my intuition opened up. Not all of it, but it's getting there. And it's just a huge part of me just came online, and I was able to say, wow, this is where it's at. And I really think that it's like one of the core elements to why we struggle. Because if there's a past life situation or a dynamic that's tied up in whatever issue that's being caused in your personal life now, then of course that's going to be the root of it.
Well, what's your take on yesterday when we talked? You mentioned that you think it's a time of tikkun, of like rectification for everybody, which I agree with. What do you think would be the reason why we would be put in a situation where a big part of us is tied up and inaccessible until now? What's the benefit of that? And then why now would it be accessible?
It's interesting because everything we go through is like extreme hashgacha pratis, which is divine timing. And every single time we go through these things, we don't even, ever since I've been doing this work with Ani specifically, hashgacha pratis has meant something completely different to me than it has ever looked. And it's really opened my mind up, because every little thing is literally supposed to happen the way it's supposed to happen. So sometimes we need to go through these hardships in order to save ourselves from even larger hardships, or in order to rectify something that had occurred, or dynamic from a previous lifetime, or a sin, or whatever it is. And we don't always necessarily know. So when you see people who are like, we don't know why it happened, but we do kind of have the tools to know. So when we start to learn to know those things, instead of disempowering ourselves and saying, we don't know, like whenever I tell
I'm laughing
people
because I said the same thing in the same voice earlier in the live, so that's why I'm laughing.
Because everyone says like, we don't know the ways of Hashem, and it's like, well, we can learn the ways of Hashem and get to know it as much as we want to.
And we're supposed to. We're
correct.
supposed to.
We are supposed to, and that's the misconception. And so, when you take off our blinders, when you open up the shades, and we lift our, glasses, our distorted glasses, and we really look at ourselves, and we're like, okay, well, what is here? Then we can see a whole new world. And we also realize that we're not just who we are. We're not just what meets the eye. And so we all have these experiences. We need to look at them. And I think that is part of raising our level of consciousness. It's one of the ways that we're going to do that in the coming days, months, years,
minutes. Yeah, I want to refer to something else that you said yesterday that I have thought, I think of often, and I think it's really right now. It's timely this minute. Is that somebody's bird?
No, that's my bird. I'm sorry. He has a lot to say. He's probably telling me the secrets of my Gil Golem.
Maybe.
I could move.
Maybe he has a piece of your. Never mind. Yeah. So, I want to bring to the table, or like I like to say, the field, that this conversation itself have the intention of being a healing conversation, because there's some huge element. Maybe it's most of healing to see. I mean, the Rebbe says in Hayom Yom that seeing the illness is 50% of the cure, but it seems to me that from a perspective of medicine, of energy healing, and you guys should please speak to this, that there's often just something being witnessed, even if only by a practitioner who's working at a distance, can free something up. I'm not sure why or how, like, why it would work that way, but if you have any thoughts on it. So anyway, let's actually just take just a moment, a moment of quick prayer on the first day of Nisan, which is not just the first day, it's the Rosh. It's the container for this energy of miracles and redemption that is meant to be distributed, and the head, the main impetus for every month of the year and really every day of the year. I'll share more about that tomorrow again in my live. But if we can have that intention, we might experience some things right now, right here and now. Anyway, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, how could it be that you might be doing a session for me and I might not even be on the phone with you, and you might see something, and it might create a shift for me?
I just want to quickly say this is just how Hasidus describes reality works. And the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, in his Likutei Devorim, spends a lot of time talking about the power and influence of thought, the impact that our thought, bringing another person to mind, has on their physical reality. And because the world is refined and functioning now in sync with its energetic underpinnings, because the Rebbe announced that the Geula is here, which means everything is working the way it's supposed to, essentially. And we're just kind of becoming acclimated to that. I think that principle is very much at play in this energy healing, which is that I can focus on you and I can tune into you, because what you really are is this amazing divine energy field. And so if I have permission and you invite me in, I can witness things for you. And the power of our thoughts is powerful enough, the Rebbeim literally say, to change something physically for another person. How much more so emotionally and spiritually?
So is it just the act of witnessing? Is it primarily the act of witnessing?
It could be, not only. Like I'll let you say in a second. Like, the different modalities have different release motions that they do according to the meridians and other energetic patterns. But the witnessing is a huge piece of it, because there's so many different motions that work to release energy. So it's probably, in essence, primarily the witnessing, but you do have to do something physical to literally help that energy move. What do you want to say about that, Rivkah?
Yeah, it's also just about the conscious awareness of the shift. So if I am firstly, we don't work on anybody without permission. But so if somebody invites us in to work on them, that's a conscious awareness of going into a session. I'm going to work with a practitioner who is going to help me with X, Y, and Z. And even if, let's say, they're witnessing something that I'm not necessarily able to access as the client, I'm still going to, reap the benefits of the healing. And that's really, really powerful.
So that by itself is speaking to the connection between souls, the intrinsic. So it's not you or me. It's like on that level sounds like we're accessing something that's beyond the personality and the individual.
Right, because our psyches, our personalities are not our souls. They're a different element of us. And so our souls know what we want, what they want. Our souls want to be connected to God, and they want to be living in truth all the time. And we aren't always living in truth, even if we think we are. We sometimes lie to ourselves and say, hey, we don't know the ways of Hashem, but we really are supposed to. And so things like that will really block us from really being connected to our souls, because what do we want? We want a complete unity between the souls and the body and the psyche. That's part of like bringing Mashiach and raising our consciousness, is the unity of all of that. And once we get to that place, we take back what's ours, our souls, our fragments, the pieces of us that are lost within time and space and who knows where. And we bring ourselves back to shlemus, wholeness.
Yeah, and a lot of times those fragments and those pieces of our souls are actually what's pulling us to people or to places, especially in instances that it's like my pull to this person or my reaction to this person or to this thing makes no sense according to the psychology of me in my life now. That's when you can that's a huge like neon sign of like, hey, there's a past life thing over here. There's a soul fragment here. There's a pattern here that's asking to be resolved.
I wonder if when people make a connection with, a healing facilitator, a client or friends or whatever, I wonder if there's in some way we're all part of the same bigger soul configuration. So we have more access to each other. Like, so everybody has their healers that are good for them, and there are ones that aren't. You know, your therapist that your friend that makes you feel good, or the one that makes you feel horrible and shouldn't be your friend. I wonder how that, like, the whole. I mean, I've been wondering this for a really long time, but the interrelationship between souls,
that they may be part of a more immediate, like, soul collective. Yeah, Rivkah and I have talked a lot about that also.
Yeah, and how yesterday we were talking about whether there could be more pieces of, like, the soul in the body. A different piece of the soul comes into a different part of the body in each incarnation, even though it's still connected to. That's how we could have past life memories if we can access them, because somehow we're the same. We're wondering if there could be more than one of you in the world at the same time, more than one piece of your soul and body.
Yeah, according to Sarah Gilgulim, yes.
Yeah, it seems like there must be. And then what is that relationship? Very, very, very mystical. But I want to say something else and open this idea. I want to open this, if it's okay, to the bigger conversation of what's happening in the world. And Rivkah, you've said several times, we're supposed to know. And I'm thinking that we can't know something new if we're not willing to unknow what we already think is the absolute truth. And we're wired to cling to knowing. So, yeah, how do you experience that? Did you used to be able to be in that space? Did you used to, like, did you have a personal change?
Part of relinquishing control and is literally like relinquishing. What is relinquishing control? It's literally emunah bitachon, right? And so we can't pick and choose how we do that. We can't. Either you have it or you don't. And it's something that you
trust. Emunah bitachon, faith and trust.
Right, faith and trust. I'm sorry. And you either have it or you don't. And it doesn't mean that it's all or nothing, that you won't have it. It's a process. You have to get to it. But you actually have to build that faith and that trust and really go on that road of saying, like, this is the path that I'm choosing. I might find roadblocks in the way, but I'm choosing this and I'm going to continue on it. And yes, my blocks and my triggers are going to come up on the way, but I'm willing to face them because I know that God's got me. I was working with Ani on something that was extremely triggering for me one day. And I had this moment of, like, oh God, I don't want to touch this. I don't want to touch this at all. I don't want to look at this. This is horrific. And I was so triggered and I felt it all over my whole body. And then I just pulled myself back down. I don't know what it was inside of me that told me, no, you need to look at this. And once the blocks are released, you will feel better. And guess what? I did. And it really, like, I knew that, like, I was supposed to see it. Hashem was showing me, you need to look at this. And so I actually allowed myself to. And I probably would be still back there if I hadn't looked at that part of myself, which was really hard to do. So I think that as we look at these things and as we like see ourselves, really truly see ourselves, and not pick and choose what we want to see and what we don't want to see. Like, yeah, I really love, shopping, but I have an addiction to shopping too. Like, no, look at the addiction, deal with it, and figure it out. And also everything else you can also be a healer at the same time. It's not just one or the other, and it's not just some parts of it or some elements of it. It's everything. It's all the time. And I also, people come to me and ask me, like, how many sessions should I do? And it's like, what are you looking to do? What are you looking to accomplish? And that's something that I think a lot of people should ask themselves, what they want to accomplish when they're looking to heal. Because everyone has the capacity to heal infinitely.
What brought you into this? I know you're both trained in emotion code, and then you're kind of taking off from there. Can you talk about that a little bit? And also, do you think about teaching this?
Oh, yeah.
The stuff that we're discovering now, yes, we're going to work to codify it and help other people to plug into, like, the stuff that we're discovering as well. So that's definitely on the table. And you can talk about how you got into it. I think we got into it right around the same time. It was right around 3 years ago for both of us.
Yeah, for me, it was an issue with my daughter, and I reached out to a practitioner who, am I allowed to name drop? And
if it's
Moshe Weinbaum, I reached out to him. I didn't know who he was. I thought he was like some makubal. And I was like, some guy who I heard he talks to himself. And so I was like, oh, a guy who talks to himself. But what I really realized in the session was he didn't talk to himself, and he was so down to earth, and he helped me with this issue with my daughter. And then I just kept feeling so pulled to doing more sessions, and I just did them every week. And I was like, wow, Like this is I need to know. And then I was also so curious about what he was doing. I was like, what is he doing? I gotta know. And I got the emotion code book and I started doing that. But then again, ultimately, as I got certified in emotion code and body code, I would get very frustrated. It would be like a period of like 2 months, and every 2 or 3 months I would get so frustrated and need to go deeper and then learn how to go deeper and take another course or read another book or whatever it was, that, and then until we got to the past life stuff, and that's where it's at. And we will go deeper with this. I know I'll get frustrated in about a week or so.
And then we'll have to figure out the next level.
Exactly. Like, what are the other parts?
Exactly. And there's going to be way more parts, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it's mainly through asking questions, developing more questions that are outside of the box of the way you usually see life, and then being presented with some kind of answers, whether visually or viscerally.
Yeah, it starts with asking questions, but that's how it works. That's how we open up the stream of Chachma, which is the vision. So it starts with asking questions, but then eventually you'll find it just starts streaming in, and you're not having to necessarily ask the questions the same way you did before. You're just like, whoa, hello, what's that? And the vision itself comes first and then invites you to ask more questions, which is really powerful. It's really incredible.
Do you think that there's a strategic way to help people to open up their own inner whatever, whether it's vision or feeling energy or hearing, or people have different senses?
These are all natural states of being a human being. And so I think if people aren't already starting to experience it, or if they are, but they're blocking it out for some reason, then there's the asking the question of what am I trying to not have to see? What is my psyche trying to protect me from having to see or deal with that's scary, so that I want to block out this greater vision? Because Hashem is pouring his spirit out on all people. Like, we're in that time now. And so which literally means like the opening up of these gifts that before would be like psychic or intuitive, but is literally just part and parcel of being a human being in this world. And so if we all have access to it. So if we don't, or we think we don't, or we're shutting it down, that's where we have to ask ourselves, why am I shutting this down? What is it that I'm trying to not deal with, that I'm afraid of?
Right. Or why do I believe that my intuition is not opening up?
You just hear us, girl.
I think my experience, I don't know. My experience is that things open when I need them to, or when I ask them to, or when I'm looking. Right? Like I used to be, I'm still naturally fear-based, or maybe it's trauma generated, but it doesn't affect me nearly in the same way that it used to. But so when I finally wanted so badly to get out here and do things that I didn't feel able to do, that fear was stopping me from, that forced me to open up a power that was beyond the fear. It was there. It was available, but it wouldn't have come out had I not had a need, a yearning. It seems to me I know there are people that have spiritual awakenings, or they'll have all of a sudden a vision or whatever, but it seems like meditation, when we need or want to go deeper, when we're yearning, when we're looking for something, it seems like that's my experience anyway. And a lot of times, like the first time I was able to actually look at somebody who wasn't in front of me, to try to feel. Somebody asked me to pray for a baby that was born a few years ago, that was born prematurely. And I said to myself to say Psalms, that like the baby was born like 26 weeks. And I didn't want to say Psalms. I mean, I said Psalms, but I didn't, there are too many times when I've seen that, as holy as that is, it doesn't take us to the finish line, So I tried to feel the baby. And I tried to, and I all of a sudden saw, I questioned very much whether it was real, but I saw the baby, I felt the energy, and I felt this great weariness, like that the baby was really tired, and that it didn't seem worth it to come into the body and to take the time to get ready and to get well, rather. And, I asked it to I pointed out that it would make such a big difference to his family, to the to the world. And then whatever happened, I talked to the mother the next morning, and I was very hesitant to tell her anything, because who am I to know anything, And she really wanted to know, and she really related to it. And I continued to go connect a few times. And I don't know if it has, I don't know what role anything plays, but the baby, when I first felt the baby's energy, it felt to me like the baby was like, no, not interested, not worth it. And then after we connected, it seemed like it settled into its body. All of this was something I was seeing and feeling.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I remember wanting to look because somebody asked me, and then it just opened. And today I was thinking about different people for whatever reason, having different perspectives. And I just, for a moment, connected myself. Like it's hard to describe. I know you guys know what I mean, but I just took a step back and looked at a person, and all of a sudden I saw, their energy in like a mighty soul, righteous way. And then I played with it a little bit, looking at other people, but that wouldn't have happened if I was just reading a book, I don't think.
Right.
Or being in, distress about my life, or anything else. Sorry for all the words, but I think it's really important for people to, it's not just like there is something happening. This is connected to the question about witnessing. There's something
the power
happening.
has been transferred to us down here, and that's what the Rebbe has told us over and over again in the Sichas of 1991 and 1992, and really for the whole Nasius, his whole leadership, was that the power is transferred to us here in our bodies in the Tachtonim. It's up to us to start to tap into this unlimited power to make the changes. There's no more, waiting for behind the scenes, the gezeras and things like that. The Rebbe's like, it's you here now in your body.
Try to translate the Hebrew.
What?
Tachtonim,
the
gezeras.
Oh my gosh. Decrees.
The lowest
the
world.
decrees. Yeah, we're in the lowest world. We're in the Tachtonim, the lowest world. Us here in our bodies, here in this lowest physical world. We're not sitting anymore waiting for the strings to be pulled from behind the scenes. It's us and the choices that we make, especially to own our power, especially to take one step beyond what we've believed was possible for ourselves. That's what actually generates and drives reality forward now. It's us here. It's us here down here in this physical world specifically.
Yeah. Rivkah, what do you want to say about that? That it's us driving things.
I think that it brings me back to what we were saying a little bit earlier, what I was saying a little bit earlier about how we really hold back from looking at ourselves. We really do. And I noticed with my own intuition, I used to think that parts of my intuition that are my intuition were just thoughts. But the truth is that they can be intertwined, and you have to know how to, it's very nuanced. You have to know how to differentiate between what's like the klipa thoughts, like the thoughts that are really your part of your programming, and the thoughts that are truly intuition. And usually I've heard that intuition will come down from like a lower place, like your stomach or your spleen or wherever, and it will you'll feel drawn to it, versus a psychological, let's say, loop or psychological kind of rumination that we have that will happen up here, and we'll feel it up here. So if you kind of just tune into yourself somatically and you can feel where it's coming from, you'll know the difference and know how to differentiate and become sharper and sharper at actually, blocking out the noise of and also obviously working through, like, why is that obsessive thought there? Why is my fear cycle there? Why am I afraid that, there's a spider on my head all the time when there isn't? There's always these it's actually a fear of mine. That's coming from my soul.
I can relate. Yeah.
We got to work on that. We'll look at that next time.
I'm going to do a session with
Change
you.
that image.
I need a 75-minute session for that. But really, we have all these fear cycles, and we don't know, we're like, okay, well, just like you said, about, working with his mom, and you weren't sure about telling her about what was going on with her baby. That made me think well, why not? And if we all collectively, and I know it's very taboo, but if we all collectively are like, hey, let's actually know about this stuff versus hold back, or versus hide it from ourselves or hide it from others. The biggest trauma to, a lot of people is this whole taboo concept of, oh, well, I don't want to hurt that person. What they don't know doesn't hurt them, but it's not true. What people don't know does hurt them, and it does affect them. And we don't even understand the ramifications of that so much and so deeply that we're just kind of walking around like blind people. but like not physically blind. We're literally like emotionally blind. We're like, we don't know, like what's next, what's coming. And people are struggling with all of these mental health disorders or issues. And a lot of them really have these strong intuitions that they're just not able to compartmentalize and differentiate from their obsessive thoughts or their fears or their traumas or whatever it is. So I think that once we are able to like put things, I don't want to say in a box, but really like kind of organize our minds, it clarifies so much. It's like cleaning a room, cleaning house.
Yeah, my hesitation, that makes a lot of sense. My hesitation at the time, though, wasn't so much that I didn't want to tell her something because it might be uncomfortable for her. I did not want to trust that I was correct. And it's another thing I want to bring up here, because I had a number of past life regression sessions after my brother passed away in 2002. It was not my first loss, and it was just too much. And I needed to feel something beyond this life. And that's why I did it. And I looked for somebody who was Brian Weiss certified. And it was really interesting, but there was one experience that I had that was so powerful that it was a more powerful emotion than I ever remember feeling in my life, a more powerful love. And I don't know if I was that person. I don't know if I was in that body. I don't know if the person who smiled at me and made my heart leap out of my chest in that little scenario was somebody I actually knew. I don't know if we're having other people's experiences. I don't know if there's imagination and metaphor in our brain. I like to keep, I feel it's, for me, I could be, I'm happy to hear an alternative opinion, but it feels really important to me to have a kind of humility that, a grain of salt. Like I've seen so many people, I've been to so many healers, I've interviewed so many, I've had, up and down so many blocks on this. And I see that people sometimes make stuff up and they believe in it like it's the truth. Or sometimes maybe they receive it, but they interpret it partly correctly and partly incorrectly. Like even the prophets of old, didn't see completely the interpretation. You can have something and not know what is it an allegory? Is it literal? Is it something, is it a fragment? Is it a dream? Is it from somebody else? Is it like, we don't know what our connections are. We don't know where things are coming from. That's just what
that's why Rivkah and I focus so much on not, you don't act on the intel that you get. You don't draw intellectual conclusions. What's the experience that you end up with? What shifts for you?
Right.
That's
what are you feeling?
Exactly. What patterns are releasing for you? What's the actual like tachlis? What is getting better for you in your life as a result of this? You don't sit and kach, like stew in the details and whatever it is. It's what is the emotion, the sensation, the feeling that has to come up and out. You don't like sit there and kach in the narrative and the juicy whatever. It's like, no, what's the energy that has to move, and is it moving for you?
Right. Exactly. It's not about you can take the details of what occurred with in a certain sense a grain of salt, and also even just the elements of trusting yourself about what's coming up. So even if it's bringing up an emotion, then it doesn't matter because we're going to release the emotions. We're going to clear through whatever the debris. And if it's bringing any debris, even if it's from somebody else, it could be somebody else's stuff. You never know. But as long as it's being released, you're doing some sort of avaida, some sort of work there that's going to help collectively heal the world, but also really individually on a soul level, heal yourself. It's like pieces to a puzzle.
So that's really interesting and really important. So it's not, we could take in, and I've seen people do this. Oh, I went to this person. He told me that I was in Vienna in the 16th century and I was rich and I was murdered.
That's why I say I won't work with people who want the touristy thing. I want to work with, I won't do this with people who want like what was I in a past life? Like that could be interesting to know, but this is about the avoda. This is about the
personality.
work.
That actually makes the personality harder. Oh, like I was this person. I'm not just this person.
Right.
Because
and we're trying to release the next end. Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. If we can't go up, if we're literally holding on to what was, and that's what we sometimes want to do. We like people go to these like past life regressionists and they're like, oh, this is cool. And like, it's like 1960s and everyone's in India and everyone wants to know about their past lives. But like, what are you doing with it? You're just knowing. So what? How is it helping? But when you're doing it with a purpose and with a mission, and you're saying like, listen, like something's coming up for me, there were certain parts of my life that I thought were kind of like just at like a standstill. Like the issue was cleared as much as it could be cleared within sessions, and that's it. But the issue was still present, right? And once we went into the past life stuff, I was like, oh no, that's the issue. This is where it is. This is the roots of it. And once you clear the roots, the issue goes away. So it's a no-brainer. And you have to understand what the true roots are. And sometimes you have to see it in order to heal it. But if you're just going just to look, then you might not be getting what you're really wanting, because you can walk away with more blocks. You form an attachment to the information that's received and that's
Exactly.
learned about.
Exactly.
Could you share, either of you, any experiences that you had where something got cleared at the roots, and then what was the result? What opened up in your life or your body or your relationships? Also, if you want to look at there are a few questions. There's some unusual comments, but there's a few questions. If you want to speak to anything anybody said, feel free.
I'll share, like, a lot of the shifts are like I mentioned, different intrusive thoughts that I'd had throughout my life that have totally gone away. One thing in particular is I was experiencing some total block in my horseback riding. A lot of people who watch these things know that I have a horse and I'm a rider, but I was experiencing like a total lack of desire to ride, a total like a lot of fear blocks and getting past a certain point and not believing that I really could. And in one of the past lives that I've really been unpacking and doing probably most of my work in, there was a barn and horses, even though I didn't ride in that lifetime, that figured significantly into tikkunim and traumas and patterns.
Healing of patterns.
Yeah, that I carried into this life. And so riding, I know for whatever reason, working with the horses and the riding is a big part of my soul's tachlis, like my actual soul mission. But there was this block on top of it, and I had several soul splits for different reasons that occurred in that barn around the horses. And Rivkah, we processed those traumas, we saw those events, and Rivkah released the fragments and the splits and helped me to reintegrate. The blocks in my writing have lifted. Like, we still have some more to go. I'm sure there's a few more things that need to be witnessed, but the shifts from that alone, that's the only thing that's changed, has been crazy. So like, and you know, if you were looking at this from just a linear human perspective, it's like, all right, so you just need to push through, or you need to exercise and get in better shape outside of the saddle. But it was like, no, it was actually past life trauma that happened to me, like in barn around horses, that had nothing to do with riding, that my soul was hesitant to release more power to me in that area. So you have to start calculating on a whole different level, processing on a much subtler level, in order to start to see these things and get the connections.
Explain, if you could, in very simple terms, what's a soul split? What do you mean by soul split?
Rivkah, you want to say?
No, you go ahead. You share
okay. It. So basically, when there's a deep psychic trauma, psychic, emotional, spiritual trauma, it's possible for a piece of the psyche to kind of split off. And I think in psychological parlance, we call that like a piece of the psyche that dissociates. Mm-hmm. And in Kabbalistic terms, we call it pizul hanefesh, the scattering of the nefesh, that like literally like a piece of the psyche will break off or split off. Or a vacuum will form. Yeah. That's
how they train sleepers sometimes, right?
Yes.
Into it, but by causing tremendous trauma that causes.
Yeah, MK Ultra. It's kind of like nature's MK Ultra.
Yeah, mind splits, but they're really soul splits.
Right, exactly. It's soul splits, yeah.
So when the mind splits, the splits automatically, because something.
Well, mind splits are like a psychological split. So, like, if you're looking at an actual mental issue, like personality disorder or schizophrenia, that's like a mind split, a certain element of a mind split. But when you have a mind split, you could for sure have a soul split that's associated, and as well as others, and there's probably larger chiseled off fragments of the soul that are causing it. So it always begins with the soul, and then kind of ripples out into the physical, the emotional, the spiritual. I mean, not the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, really, and the psychological.
Yeah. And these pieces of the soul that split off, every part of our soul has different co-host powers, gifts within it. And so when we reintegrate that, and you may have stuff coming up because in order for you to move forward in your life now, and your mission now, and your geula now, you need to call back to you a piece of your soul that's still out there, that has a certain koach, a certain power, ability that you need now in order to move forward.
Yeah.
It's like if you're looking through your house for your car keys. It's like I need to go somewhere and I need my keys and I can't find them. So it's kind of like that.
Is it correct to say from your perspective that it's like a serious disconnect between the conscious mind and even maybe the subconscious mind and the actual soul?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, we found that the
connected.
splits. Yeah, that the splits can happen both within the Nefesh HaBahamis, which is the natural human psyche, and then the very lowest levels of the Nefesh Elokis, which is the divine soul. It's the lowest levels.
Say that again,
The splits can happen both in the Nefesh HaBahamis, which is the human soul, the human psyche, and we've also found at the very lowest levels of the divine soul, the ones that are subject to becoming like affected negatively by this world.
So one would be human trauma, what we'd call human trauma, and the divine soul trauma. I'm asking would be this, like the soul's too shocked about life, doesn't feel. Is that related to Cholat?
It could be that, but it's also like sometimes if there are two souls in a life together that have a very powerful field or dynamic, and then there's intense trauma between them, or the intrinsic relationship between those two souls goes off the rails, then at those lower levels of the Nefesh Elokis, you can find a split or a fragment. We haven't gone that. We have to do more deep dive into like the specific implications and structure around that. But for now, we're just asking, okay, which soul is this occurring in?
Yeah, souls are so extremely interesting, but they're so intricate and there's so many details and so much notes.
Yeah.
Everything you ever think you know about anything, when you start to learn about the souls, you realize you know nothing. And you're like, whoa, like, what is this stuff? I don't get it. But it's literally like, it just doesn't make sense, but also it does at the same time. It's unbelievable.
You can't think in a linear way anymore. And like, because most of us think like we don't realize that unconsciously we think that our soul is like, oh, the happy invisible version of me, but our souls are like quantum, multidimensional. There are so many aspects of them. There are so many levels of them. Like if I think here, this is me, well, this is tiny tip of the iceberg of what I actually am, and the parts of self and powers that I actually now, because the Ghoul is here, have the ability and the power to call in, but I have to do the avoda to be able to call those powers in. I can't just be like,
But that's not what you're saying, really, right? You just said it, but that's
what I'm saying.
When you're saying a soul is so intricate, has so many levels and dimensions, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. No, actually.
Just that it has so many powers and so many perceptions that we're not aware of. It's in so
it's like a flame. It literally, like, you know how when you like transfer a flame or a fire, it can either be bigger or smaller, and you can't really measure the size of a flame. You can't really measure the size of a soul and how much is breaking off and how much is not. It obviously will kind of measure it up. Let's say if you're gauging it per percentage, but the truth is that it's got a fluidity to it that literally even water doesn't have. And so it's kind of just goes, and you can't really be like, okay, well, it's 50% of the soul. It doesn't make a difference because it could either get larger or smaller depending on whatever it is.
So the flame is just what it's connected to is what controls.
Correct. And so the life force and the neshama is actually literally compared to a flame.
Yeah.
And because that's kind of what it's like. It literally kind of doesn't have that that containment that a lot of other elements have. And so
that's really interesting. So then the flame is present, probably whatever fully means. Some of it is in this dimension, some of other dimensions, but depending on what it's connected to, that's how much shows up as the actual visible fire.
Yeah, and there also could definitely be probably shadows of it, or even kind of like duplications of that element of that soul.
Because it talks about dark fire and white fire.
Oh, I didn't know that. I want to know about
that. Yeah, I don't know so much about it, but it's very interesting. You can see if you look at a flame, you can see that you probably have, but there's the wick, and then there's the circle of darkness that's connected to the wick. The actual fire that's bright is not even touching the wick. Yeah. So what is? So the white fire is coming from the dark fire. One thing that I know that that the Mittler Rebbe says in Shar Yichud is that that when we use physicality, which is concealing our soul, covering our soul when we use it for godliness, when the soul gets to say, I'm going to use this money to help a person, I'm going to use this brain to connect to God, whatever it is. So then we are actually burning that klipa, that impurity and that concealment, and that creates a dark fire that goes up and brings down a bright fire. That's really interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
There's no size to the flame, or no measurable size to the flame. Is there anything either of you would like to say more about, like, how do you have any sense on how much in these times when these times, obviously many of the deeper things are coming up to be dealt with, because I guess we have the capacity, and I guess this is it. So whatever it is that, from past lives or this life, do you have a sense of how much of what people are struggling with is coming from pieces of the soul that have split off or past lives?
I think a huge amount, more than people would realize. Yeah. I think we have less free will now than we have in previous lifetimes, because we have no more like, okay, you can go mess up and fix it in another Gilgul. Like, no, this is the cleanup job essentially now. So we can now step into who we truly are, from my perspective.
Yeah, I think that right now, at least for me and Ani, we're going past looking at these past lives from probably our most previous past lives, like two or three most previous past lives that were more prominent, that were more important to look at. And I think as we clear and work through those, we'll actually be able to go farther back in time in history, because our intuitions will open up with this work even more. And I think we have the capacity to do that, because really we have this base of understanding kind of what life kind of looked like within the last 100, 200, 300 years to a certain degree, even more because of movies. And we have this kind of this like foundation of looking at it, but we don't really know what things look like really far back. And so as we open up our own intuitions, and we also kind of release the boundaries, and also like anything that's holding us back from kind of believing anything or opening ourselves up to literally anything and all this information, we'll be able to go deeper. And that's really just like unblocking our subconscious beliefs and our conscious beliefs too, because we all have these belief systems, and it's like, oh, I don't believe in past lives. Well, like, you can believe in them or you don't have to, but they're there. They're a thing.
But they're there, so, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to believe in it, but he's there. So
right.
It's all about like how you're going to go about it and look at it.
Do you think that that people need to know how to do some kind of energy healing before they can do this? No?
No.
Would you be willing to come on another time and do a workshop with me and show people like an actual, yes? Yes?
Yeah. We're going to have to change names and details, but yeah. For sure.
You could definitely do that.
But actually lead people through the process so that they can understand how to do this kind of work on some level.
Yeah, I think we'll have to codify. Maybe we'll have to start making our charts a little bit. And then, I would totally be down for that.
Yeah, definitely down the line, once we kind of develop things a little bit more, we can like really open it up to do.
Because it's important to be working with someone. Like, we can do our own self-healing, but if you want to make sure that you're not spinning into projection, like Rivkah and I check in with each other all out. I'm like, well, this thing came up with me. Can you tell me am I projecting or is this real? And there's a few times where we've said to each other, no, that's not what happened.
Right.
But here's what did.
It doesn't happen often. It doesn't happen often because we both kind of like do this all the time. But I can imagine for myself 5 years ago, myself 2 years ago, myself a year ago, I would have for sure projected all over the place with that. And it would have been just something sort of like part of my imagination. And there is that, just like I said earlier, there's that nuanced difference between what's the imagination and what's actually intuition kick. And you need to just know the difference. And once you can get to that place, and most very intuitive people can access that part of themselves, but having the confirmation of it from somebody else is very, very, very helpful, and also really necessary.
Sharpens your intuition. Yeah. Because when you're taking it, because when you're taking it to the next level, you want somebody who you can check in with to be like, hey, was this a projection? And if it was, you can tune into that frequency in yourself and say, like, now that this is stored, this feeling, this is projection.
Yeah, so and why was it a projection there too?
Exactly. What was actually there? Exactly.
because there's always some reason behind the projection, what that needs to be
Exactly.
healed. Like, why are we all projecting all the time? It's literally because of our own blocks.
So
So
we're
when we,
created that. That's part of the divine design for this until now, until it's not.
right,
That we are projecting. That's the nature of the human condition. I mean, everything, all these horrible things are the human condition.
Now,
But
well,
we
now
want
we're
to contain it. We want to contain the projections. We want to say, hey, no, like the projections, like I always tell people in sessions, it's our minds are like dogs and we need to train them and we need to keep them on a leash. And are you the dog walker or is the dog walking you?
It's so
And
funny.
you need to get it on a leash and train it. My father used to say that all the time too, but really it's true. And if we are going to give into our like nefesh habahamis desires, and we're going to just kind of like eat a huge tub of ice cream, even though we know we're going to gag it out later, then like, where are we? We're not Homer Simpson here. We're literally people. And so we need to step into that.
This is too funny. You're making me think.
Yeah,
Your father once said to me, "Don't you wish you were the type of person who only ate cherry ices?"
Why? That's such a my father thing to
That's
say.
so funny. That's so funny.
On point.
Yeah, we want to move from projection to perception, and that's a big piece of what bittul is. We talk about bittul all the time, which is, nullification of the ego, and a huge piece of bittul is stop projecting and start being present with what is actually real.
Yeah, it's a real journey. You can really have like this very exciting, turbulent ongoing encounter with yourself, between whatever you are now and whatever else there is that you don't know yet. And it really is like that. It's really like, which really makes me think, because we can talk to ourselves and we can look into ourselves and we can have objectivity on ourselves or not. It really makes me think that the only thing that's happening here in this entire multiverse is relationship, and that one can be 2 or 5, or and that maybe maybe it comes down to that simple thing that everything is God talking to itself.
It's all bein adam l'chaver right now. I think the Rebbe even talks about that. I don't know where. Don't ask me for sources because I'm not good like that. But I think that like part of our avodah right now in the world is really working on the relationship between us and other people and our friends and the people around us, and rectifying that, because we're kind of ready. We gotta have to stop being jerks to each other. And I mean that in the nicest possible way.
So I want people to know how they can do. I don't know. I know you do work. You have a practice, Rivkah, and you're available if people want to get in touch with you. Do you want to?
I do.
How can people get in touch with you? And also, Ani, I don't know if you want people to get in touch with you or not. So that's why I said Rivkah first.
People can check in with me after Pesach, but I'm going to send them to Rivkah first because she's incredible and she has more space. So Rivkah, tell them your contact info.
My contact is my name, Rivkah Roness @gmail. So as my name is written here.
And you have your website, yeah?
RONESS.
You have a website?
Gmail, yeah. And my website is rivkahroness.com.
That's easy to remember.
Yes, my name.
2 S's. And how many sessions do you? Maybe this is a stupid question, but you already mentioned this. What do you want to get done? Do you see that sometimes one session changes people and sometimes 20 sessions doesn't? Or is that your experience?
It depends on how much the person actually wants to let go of their blocks.
Yeah. Sometimes people just want to use it as like a place to just like talk and just like let it out and not actually kind of use the practitioner as the person who's going to like to vent. It's a vent sesh, but it's not. We don't really charge for vent sessions.
Yeah, no, we're both here for the people who are here for their own healing.
Yeah. And those are the people who ultimately stay with the healing journey. Like after a certain while, they're the ones who are not really interested in really like doing the healing. They'll break off and they'll find something else that works for them. And that's totally fine too. Everyone has got to find the modality that works for them and the healing that works for them. But really like the deeper healing is where it's at with us, because we want to look deeper. And that's usually the kind of clients that come to us.
Do you think that there's nothing that can't be healed by modalities like this? Do you think, do you think it's always that a person isn't willing to let go? Like, what are your beliefs around that? And
Healing is infinite. Everyone can heal. I think we don't all know, even now as practitioners, we don't all know how, but I think that we're in this world to find out, and we're gonna.
Yeah,
And
it's the period of finding out.
yeah.
Agree. So I know everybody has to go, but do you want to share anything? Do you have any thoughts? Like, what are you thinking about what's going on in the world? We talked a lot about how it's time to bring down, to know God, to know what God has in store for us, to know what we are, all of that, to stop being jerks. But is there anything else that you want to say in terms of what's happening in the world? Anything you think that you're willing to share?
I just think it's time for us to like own who and what we really are. And that's what I've been saying nonstop since I've been speaking the past few years, is like, it's time for serious self-ownership. And that's a lot of the work that...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. You're going to say what I was going to say.
Is focusing on the correct things and not the incorrect things, and knowing that you have to put your energy in a balanced way in your own personal life and also in other areas of your life, but you can't have too much of one thing. Otherwise, you'll be completely out of balance. And so if we're looking at, like, let's say the whole world and how horrific things are now, when you put all of your energy, and there are people who really are afraid, but they put all of their energy into just that, then that can reap repercussions as well. And we're not looking to do that. It's a distraction from our own personal avodah is, our own personal journey. And we have to keep ourselves in check and remind ourselves we need to bring ourselves back and be like, no, I'm not going to go there. That's not healthy. I'm going to work on myself. And we need to keep our heads straight, because otherwise we can get so lost in either the right or the left. And it's not what we're supposed to be doing.
Sometimes I wonder if one person could get deep enough into their real, essential being, if that would be enough to spread it through the whole system.
Well, back in the olden days, in the Baal Shem Tov times, there was I don't remember what his name was. He locked himself in a room for a year, one of the disciples of the Baal Shem Tov. So he probably did that when he did that.
Except it didn't transform everything.
The thing is that when we do this, it makes it easier for everyone else to do it, but nobody's going to get out of doing their work. Right. Nobody gets out of doing their work, but the deeper we go ourselves, the easier we make it for everybody else. But nobody's getting a pass out of doing their own avoda. Nobody really wants a pass for real.
Pass. Nobody's getting complete pass, and maybe nobody really essentially wants a complete pass. But the fact is that things are easier and easier all the time. So at some point it could be like a blink of an eye, or just a realization and a decision, and prayer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, people who are on the front lines are just kind of clearing the field to make it more easily accessible for everybody else. And that's just
we're also not in those times of the Baal Shem Tov. Like, the Baal Shem Tov was the one who was able to do this, and all of his students and stuff like that. But now it's our time to do these things, and it's our time to be able to help each other heal and raise each other up, because we don't have the same kind of leaders that we had back then.
Right.
For good reason.
Because we're meant to become those.
Right. We are the leaders.
Yeah. I'm just now quick looking for, I don't know, it's probably not going to come up, but because I don't remember it exactly, but that quote there's a famous quote about the Baal Shem Tov, who, if you don't know, is the founder of the whole Hasidic movement, great mystic, etc. Who everybody who has downloaded, received, intuited the mystical Torah on any level, in any stream, is a follower of the Baal Shem Tov. So there's the famous saying and song that story that the Baal Shem Tov did an ascension of the soul to the chamber of Mashiach, of the Redeemer, and asked, "When are you coming, Master?" And Mashiach said to him, "When your Torah will be spread to the farthest reaches." But the rest of that quote, you guys know the rest of the quote? I don't know it word for word.
Yeah, Rivkah and I were just talking about it.
We were.
You say it, girl.
I don't know it. You know it better.
It's basically when the common people will be able to make Yehudim as you do.
Yeah. And how do you interpret
Here we are, being common people making Yehudim. In a very simple sense, even like according to the Baal Shem Tov himself, it's like literally when you see hashgacha, or you take a spiritual concept and you actually see it at play in your life. And then there's the technical yichudim of knowing how to use divine names and things like that. And there's information on that out there, but be careful. Just don't do that yet until we're evolved a little more. Start with the taking the concepts that you learn as intellectual concepts and start to see and experience them in your life, or take the step to say, I know Torah teaches me that reincarnation is a real thing and plays deeply into every facet of what I'm doing in this world. And then the Rebbe says that now I have the ability to participate consciously in Hashgacha Pratis and not just be swept along with it, because that's what a tzaddik does.
Right. See, I also, sorry.
And so literally like taking the step to say, like, let me actually experience how that's real. I have to get off in like 2 minutes, but
yeah, I have to get off. Also, I have an appointment. I just wanted to add that from my perspective, I think Yichudim means to connect, that which is appears to be disconnected, but is essentially, like pieces of the puzzle. So I feel like also, anything that needs to be connected, potential and actual, soul and body, soul fragments with the rest of it, us with the tzaddikim, us with God, our present with our history, with our destiny, one of us with the other. I think that Yichudim is on that level. Everything that seems fragmented and disconnected needs to be revealed within each of those things, that it's intrinsically a piece of God, a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the greater whole. And I think the more we think like that, and then the more we seek in the ways that you guys are pioneering here, to find the missing parts of ourselves and to put them together with the present parts of ourselves, visible parts of ourselves, the more and the faster we ourselves, and by extension everybody else, can actually fully awaken to who and what we are. And that's really what these times are about. That's what everything is about. We're at the time of destiny. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And I'd really love if we'll talk about it, if there's something that we could do more that's more experiential with people, or
totally.
Yeah. And I myself would love to know more in detail about what you're doing. And
there are things unfolding in my life that I will happily share when things are more together. And I will happily go back on that experience with you guys if you want to do that again. Any
date on that?
Oh God, hopefully soon. I would say let's probably before Pesach, but let's
pretty soon. Yeah. Okay, so we'll be in touch. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you, everybody.
Bye guys.
Thank you.
Bye. See you tomorrow if you want to know more about the miraculous power of the month.